Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Teachers Talk podcast. Today, we want to talk about our Teachers College research projects because almost every Teachers College has them. Generally, you have to do them in the last semester or two of your program, and we just thought we'd give you a little bit of insight into what we're doing and the overall process. First, just a quick introduction. So, what we have to do for them is we basically choose a research question that we're interested in learning about, and that generally has something to do with your placement, your last placement. And then we have to do like a research proposal. We have to do a positionality statement. So like, how do I feel about this topic? How does my identity intersect with the people who I'm studying? Stuff along those lines. Then we need to do like a short literature review and an annotated bibliography. And then at the end, we have some sort of presentation or report due. So I'm just going to pass it over to David, who's going to start it off. And he's going to talk a little bit about his research project, and then we'll hear from Alex, and I'll wrap it up.
My research project is a little bit about assessment. So assessment, very hot topic, very important, and I guess large topic that I wanted to address just to kind of develop my own professional knowledge and just help my own, I guess, students in the future in terms of assessment. So mine is all about assessment methods that are equitable for all students in a kind of hybrid model with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. We have hybrid learning, so having equitable assessment for students that are online versus students in person, and also addressing the idea of examinations. Are examinations being canceled? Is this good for students? Is this bad for students? Can this be, I guess, a path into a new method for assessment as well. And lastly, I know my topic is huge, but I wanted to address rubrics. So the use of rubrics in the classroom is very popular in teachers college, but a lot of other teachers that I've talked to don't like the use of rubrics specifically for reasons of, I guess, subjectivity. And a lot of the time they're very vague, or they can kind of be used to, I guess, keep marks at certain places because it's only a level. There are different, I guess, concepts to do with rubrics where you can add marking schemes into your rubrics. You can add checklists and things into your rubrics or make them very specific, which I know some of my professors have done, where even though they called it a rubric, it wasn't really as much of a rubric as you would think when it comes to rubrics. But that is the basis of my research. I planned on, I guess, doing a lot of collection of data in terms of documenting students, I guess, work and seeing how they're performing on, I guess, quizzes and tests versus other projects and things alike, as well as kind of getting student opinions on their thoughts on assessment. Because although assessment is very important and a lot of the time the teachers come up with assessment, I thought it would be kind of interesting to see what students think would be fair methods to assess their learning and really, I guess, engage them meaningfully through their learning. So instead of, writing that test, maybe they'd like to create a project based on a certain lesson in a unit, which would be really interesting. But I
Yeah.
will pass it off to Alex.
Well,
And
I'm
he
actually just going to jump in here because I do have a question for you. So obviously, as you said, assessment is a massive topic right now, and it's something that we're trying to get more student-centered assessments rather than teacher-centered. But you said something about rubrics. I was just curious if you came across anything in your literature review, like your annotated bibliography stuff. Did it mention like whether rubrics were good or bad, or the effort that teachers put into rubrics? Did it talk about anything, or was it a little hard to find?
So in terms of rubrics, for my annotated bibliography, I looked into, I guess, one talking about teacher design rubrics, if they're good enough to be clear and fair for students. And it discussed a lot to do with co-created rubrics,
Okay.
um, and I guess co-creating them with students, and if that even really helps students, or the idea that rubrics can sometimes confuse students on, I guess, what they really need to put out, given a lot of them are like very vague. Like a level 4 is they thoroughly did something, or a level 3 is
Considerable, some, and then
considerable.
limited.
Level
Yeah.
2 and 1, they have like very specific vague words, and it's kind of subjective, I guess, a sense for the educator to decide, was that a thorough explanation versus a considerable explanation.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Thank you. Yeah. It was just sort of a big topic, and I use a lot of rubrics in my own classroom, so I was just curious. But anyways, Alex, why don't you go for it? Tell us about your
Of course,
project.
and you know that's this is touched upon that. That is a really important topic, and one thing that I kind of find myself doing is I make too much of a cookie cutter rubric, 'cause that's kind of what's expected of us. But I've tried, I ask for my students' inputs, like, okay, guys, how do we feel about this? Do we think this is, and I'll show them two samples. Do we think this is a level one or a level two or level three or level four? And then based on the examples, I kind of say, okay, whatever you want to achieve, try make it look like this, kind of getting them involved. But my research has to do with grade 10 science, and it's basically around the idea, like the bigger question. I was talking about this with some other mentor teachers today, and a couple other uh, student teachers, about the culture of our education system, what we're trying to achieve. All three of us are in IS, all three of us have at least one science-based course, if not two. And my topic focuses around grade 10 science and how we can make sure that we are properly preparing them and establishing a solid foundation for their future academic endeavors. And the reason that's particularly important is because at a younger age, and obviously this has to do with culture of what the school system is, but also the culture that kids have at home. So that's like ethnography, basically, which talks about culture applied to social contexts, or an ethnographic analysis. And so, a lot of these kids, they care just about the letter grade. And I find that when you kind of manipulate or you twist the question a little bit off of what it is from, say, the textbook or the course reading, a lot of the kids who have A's kind of stumble. Whereas those who maybe have B's on like your traditional test, but you ask them a question, they really have a good grasp on it in terms of, okay, I understand this, maybe we can look at it this way. Whereas the A students would just freeze, because for them it's like rote memorization and just staying within the box, right? So kind of looking at how can we not just teach grade 10 science for good grades, but how can we teach it for apprehension of knowledge? How can we teach it for creativity? How can we teach it such that it's not just in the traditional mindsets of multiple choice, written answer, project, right? So I even had an idea once. I wasn't able to do it, unfortunately, because of the rules, but I wanted to make like a U shape of my classroom, like this, and then I would be either in the middle or on one side, and just have a discussion about different things. And I would say, okay, guys, how do we feel about this topic? And then we would talk, we'd make points as a group in a document or something. So yeah, I mean, I got some really good feedback from my TA. She told me I should pursue this research as a master's once I'm done, because maybe I will. I don't have the patience for masters. I've been in school for, goodness. I mean, I'm 23 now. I've been in school since I was 5, so like 18 years. I'm tired. Now I'm going to be in high school for the rest of my life, granted. But yeah, I think it's important that and I think that kind of ties into assessment what as well, in a way, because it's like, what are we assessing? Are we just assessing their ability to regurgitate content onto us, or do we actually want to assess how they're going to be able to apply the knowledge in a real world context?
For sure.
Because a lot of us, like, we all have at least one university degree. Jeff has master's. We're all about to finish another program ourselves. We've been in the education system long enough. We've seen different types of rubric, different types of assessment, different types of testing. And so how do we actually, an assessment, maybe if David and I merged, like, the Infinity Stones on the Gauntlet, kind of combine forces, how do assessments even then relate to what we're actually expecting of our students, especially because all three of us teach some sort of science.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
knows.
was I was gonna say, you've been in school for 18 years, dude. I've been in school for like 22 at the end of this
There you
year.
go. I'm
Like,
the child of the
jeez.
group, guys. So there,
I
there you
know,
have it.
but geez, it's been so long. But anyways, my research project, it is quite different. So your two sort of both centered around, it was like an assessment focus. So mine is a little bit more of a social focus. So what I decided to research for my topic was, just for context, I am in an integrated classroom with a handful of special education kids. It's an absolute wonderful experience to get to work with them, get to learn them, and get to see how their mind works and like how they can apply different things. Like, oh my goodness, it is just an amazing opportunity. But coming into this, we had to, again, select something related to our practicum. So what I ended up doing was I chose, like, how do we create inclusive learning environments for autism spectrum disorder students? which overall there's been a good amount of research done into. But what I also wanted to learn about, just sort of in addition to that, was rather than just creating spaces for them, how can we help them to develop social skills and supports amongst their peers, which is often very overlooked because a lot of times special education teachers come in and, as a teacher, they're helping the students, but they're not sort of like helping the student help themselves, or they're not having peers help those students, right? Like generally students with special education are often ostracized or bullied, and I wanted to really make sure that that doesn't happen. So what I ended up doing was, when I was going through my research, I found some really cool like instructional methods and some different intervention methods. And intervention is not a bad thing here. It's interventions mean more along the lines of like using a certain method to achieve a desired result. It's not like, hey, stop doing this. So just as an example, a bunch of the methods are related to peer mediated intervention and instruction methods. So PMII, if anyone is interested in looking it up afterwards. I will be posting a video recapping my research project at a later date. But just for now, this will be good enough. Basically what that is like you can do, there's a million of them. There's like Circle of Friends. There is, I can't even remember some of the other names. Whatever, I'm on the spot. Let's just talk about Circle of Friends. So what you do is you get a bunch of peers together and you sort of act as a focus group and you talk to them and you say, okay, well, what is difficult about working with the student? What do you enjoy working with the student about, and get to learn about the students a little more. And then you put them all in this big group and you have these students model appropriate social behavior and help that student to learn the appropriate social behavior for a bunch of different incidences. And then every week or two, you get together sort of as a group and you get together with the focus student and you sit down and you go, okay, well, let's talk about this. What were your experiences like? What did you have difficulties with? What did you benefit from? And just build those social supports amongst their peers. And it is really, really cool. I'm not doing it justice in this explanation, but again, I'll discuss it later. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of individual methods that will do that. So if you're using like an individual method, what you're going to be doing is you might do like role playing, like some skits about like different social interactions that happen on a daily basis and how to appropriately respond to them. And then, write journals and reflections on that and help students that way. So there are a bunch of individual methods around as well, like one-on-one. You can also work with different therapists, so like ABA therapists or BCBAs, which are board certified behavioral analysts. Or you could work with, I can't remember, it's like special education instructors, which aren't a teacher, but they're like a board certified person as well. It's actually pretty cool. One last thing, like I think the most cool learning that I had from this whole experience, and something that I really want to harp on in my presentation and just try to punch it home, is the idea that there was a bunch of studies done, and the studies found that intervention methods where the teacher was dealing with the focus student, or like a professional was dealing with the focus student in a one-on-one situation, they did not work as well as the same situation, but happening through peer-mediated instruction. So I thought that was really, really cool, and just goes to show how powerful relationships are among students and their peers. So I thought that was amazing. That's just a brief little insight into my research project. But I think I'm going to end it there because we've been going for about 15 minutes or so. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you're having a great day. Please don't hesitate to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and welcome to all our new members. But with that said, as always, stay happy, safe, and healthy, and we'll see you all around. Bye, everyone.